Hello, I'm Mike McGee, the content manager for Course Report. We help people find and choose the best courses for their career goals. Today, I'm talking with Tim Bruns, a General Assembly grad who made the leap from finance to software engineering. Since graduating from GA's Web Development Immersive in 2017, Tim has grown his tech career and is now manager of solutions engineering at Quantum Metric. We'll hear about what inspired his career change, how he approached bootcamp, and his advice for anyone thinking about making the same leap. Welcome, Tim.
Thanks for having me. Excited to impart some of my war stories and maybe some subtle wisdom here and there if I can.
Awesome. All right. Well, we're gonna jump in. So you had a successful career in finance, from analyst work at CRT Capital Group to equity sales trading at MKM Partners. Can you tell us about the moment that sparked your interest in software engineering?
It was really a confluence of kind of two forces, I would say. Is the first was I saw two of my closest friends go through General Assembly shortly after graduating from college, and both of them having a very high degree of career success early on, and sort of a reframing of career purpose and seeing that evolution take shape for them. In addition to the fact that there were some headways in the industry I was working in. So having reached what I would call sort of my supposed dream job, something I had wanted to do forever, which is trade on a trading desk, got to that point, but realized that it was kind of a dying breed in terms of humans being a focal point of that. And being the youngest guy on the trading desk and seeing older folks having their career kind of sputter out, it was kind of one of those things where I'm like, hey, maybe I need to have more domain expertise than just a Series 7 and 63.
Understood. All right. All right. So take us back to October 2nd, 2017, that Monday when you quit your job to attend General Assembly. What's going through your mind and how did you decide?
I'll never forget that day because I'll never forget I don't want to say unwarranted fear, but fear that didn't need to necessarily be there. Picture you have your dream job, it's everything that you could have wanted it to be other than the satisfaction part and the purpose part. I remember leading up into that day thinking the judgment that would occur, that I would walk into this office as a 27-year-old with the world at my fingertips and I'm giving it all up. But at the same time, all those kind of converging forces I mentioned before, I started to put a plan in place, in July of that same year, where I kind of came to this realization that my current career wasn't going to take me where I really wanted to go. And I started putting the building blocks in place and laying the foundation of applying to General Assembly, doing some coding exercises, working with my best friend and roommate who, luckily enough, had gone through the program and just bouncing ideas off of him, eventually attending information sessions, and then, getting into the program so that when I went in to quit on October 2nd, I had laid the groundwork for myself to kind of jump off from there. And it felt like a leap of faith, but it did feel like there was some semblance of a safety net.
What was important to you? What other factors were important to you when you were researching boot camps? Like you had this GA connection, but what were you looking for in a program, knowing you're going to make this take this huge leap into learning how to be a software developer?
The fact that I had two of my best friends as proof points that the program worked, that weighed heavily on that. So like the network effect of General Assembly is very strong. The second thing was more, just practical logistics. Like, could I make it happen? I was living in Stamford, Connecticut. I wanted to go to the on campus experience. Could I commute and make it every day and make that work in my life? I have to say, probably the most important factor is really the outcomes that they can generate. I remember going to an info session, and I'll probably get the stat wrong, but it was something like 80 to 90% of grads get a job within the first 3 to 6 months. I remember sitting there thinking to myself, that's a pretty good proof point. That's a statistic I could see myself in the majority there, right? Like I see myself as a hard worker and somebody who will put in the effort to not be on the bottom 10% of that bell curve if I can influence it. And so all of those factors of friends, logistics, proof points, those made it easy for me to say, you know what, General Assembly, on top of their brand and staying power, like is a safe bet.
What was your experience like in the General Assembly Web Development Immersive program? How did you approach learning to code from your finance background?
The experience, looking back, obviously a lot of nostalgia, but the experience was like nothing short of amazing for me. It was so transformative. It really broke you down to your most simple and basic parts. I think the most important part of the experience was for me, I was 27 at the time, was really relearning how to learn something immersively. And you really kind of in a sense, like leave your old identity behind and adopt a new one. Now, it's not to say that you don't bring some of your old skills, and we'll touch upon how finance maybe help me from like an analytical perspective. But overall, one of the things I remember is my roommate and best friend, and who actually ended up both of those guys that went to GA with me ended up working with me at Quantometric for a time. But I remember the before my first day, and he was like, I'm really jealous that you're going to General Assembly. I'm like, what do you mean? You have a software engineering job, like you're on the other side. And he's like, well, what you're gonna find out is that there's so much energy and positive momentum swirling around in that environment where everybody is there adopting a beginner's mindset. Everybody is there to up level themselves. Everyone is there putting investment in themselves to generate a better future, a better tomorrow for themselves. And that's where I think the experience is really unmatched from anything that I've done. I remember being really overwhelmed in the beginning, like, man, did I choose the wrong thing here? Am I really capable of this? Having worked in finance before and being very analytical from the onset, and just being somebody who could keep themselves organized and manage projects and work with people. I think those are some of the soft skills I sort of brought in. But I'll be honest, I had next to no programming experience when I actually started.
What did you focus on immediately after the boot camp to make yourself hireable, to make sure you were in that majority getting through the job search and interview process?
I think General Assembly did a really good job of helping us focus on the right things, because once you leave the program, the hand holding stops a little bit and you have to hold yourself accountable. But the couple of things that I did on my own was dedicated my job search to being like a full time exercise. So that meant 9 to 5. Every morning, I was starting out by doing coding exercises and problem solving for a coding interview or an engineering type of interview. Then spending, the other half of my day either learning new technologies that were relevant in the market. So like learning front end web technologies and native technologies like React and React Native, just making sure that you're staying current with your skills, and following your passions is important. Like building projects of things that you care about or that you want to work on or iterate on, being a consistent contributor to your GitHub definitely helps. Also, just spending time applying to jobs, right? Working on your resume, workshopping ideas, practicing talking about your personal narrative and storytelling. And the way that GA really helped me on this was I had a great career services coach in New York where I took the course. But I knew after I took the course that I wanted to move to the West Coast. So they linked me up with the career coach in San Francisco and in LA. And I did a whole trip up and down the coast. And I would spend time at the campus and I would get interviews and do workshops and do demo days. I did a few demo days at the LA campus here where I live now. I ended up getting a bunch of interviews off of that. I got really far. I think I even got to the final round on a couple of them. It didn't work out. But all it took was one. And while it might have not been something that GA sourced for me directly, I did source it through a GA alumni who just happened to be part of my extended network. So again, like network effect coming into play here. GA's involvement in my overall post course experience, it took about 5 months, but I don't think I would have had a degree of success had I not had them as a resource.
Have you stayed in touch with your cohort? Have they become part of your extended network? Just talking about your local GA cohort network or General Assembly kind of family that you've developed, over the past, almost decade?
Yeah, I mean, I would say at this point, what is it now? 7, 8 years removed. There's probably only one person who I would say is kind of like my best bud at GA. Him and I still keep in touch, mostly through sharing of Instagram memes nowadays. But when something comes up as far as a professional ask, like one of us wants to share a friend's resume or each other's resume around, we've definitely had conversations on the professional front, and him and I went through a lot together in the program. I would say he was probably a more gifted developer than I was, so I kind of benefited from his skill. But overall, the network at large. I mentioned, two of my best friends who also moved out to the West Coast with me, and we ended up working together at Quantometric. But broadly, I've come into contact with a lot of folks that either have been to boot camps or have been specifically to GA. One example of this is I got introduced to somebody who was thinking about taking a coding boot camp, and I introduced them to some of the resources at GA, and they ended up taking the 32-week program. And then shortly after they graduated from that program, and him and I kept in touch throughout, a job opened up at Quantometric, a really nice entry level job similar to the one that I started out in. So I helped him get in for an interview. Lo and behold, he's been at Quantum for at least 6 months now. And it was such a gratifying thing because obviously he did all the work. I just kind of nudged him in the right direction. But he got like a company wide shout out the other day on our company all hands because he's been thriving and doing amazing work and building great relationships. So it's fun to see the new crop and the new generation of bootcamp grads finding success in their career. And, I'll be closely tracking his career because I'm sure in the coming years he'll continue to grow and elevate himself.
That's an awesome story. Thank you for sharing that. And you mentioned one other cohort mate that you said may have been more of a gifted developer. Talk a little bit more about the technical side of it, the projects you built, or like anything that you worked on that helped demonstrate your technical competency, maybe even beyond the bootcamp curriculum. Do you remember any of those projects and mind sharing?
Yeah, the one I remember most clearly is Project 3, which is the famed group project. So you do your first two projects are solo, you're starting to feel like you have your feet under you, but then you quickly realize that a group project is a different beast. And that's really how the world of software engineering works is operating within, a team concept. There's no other way to experience or learn about these things until you just go through it. I remember I was with a group of engineers. We were all around the same skill level from our cohort, and we decided to, sign of the times, create a blog about cryptocurrency and real time crypto quotes. I just remember a lot of disagreement early on around who would work on what and a lot of back and forth and finally deciding, okay, this is what we want to do. Then it was over Christmas break and there was a snowstorm. So everyone trained into Connecticut to my apartment, and we had, a couple days worth of coding sessions there. Thankfully, my roommate to help us debug some things when we get stuck. Then I just remember not knowing like if we were going to finish on time, and we all went to a Starbucks in Manhattan on New Year's Eve. The heat was broken. I don't know why we chose this Starbucks, but we were all like freezing in our like hats and winter jackets and coats. I remember getting to a point, at the end of that day and being like, okay, like we're good. Like we really just need to deploy this, and just realizing like what it took to come together and not just like get to a point of completion, but to collaborate and cooperate with one another. I just remember the feeling of satisfaction when we went back into the cohort on Monday and we were by far further along than any other group and ready to deploy our code and ready to present in that week. So it's just one of those times where you realize that this is what software engineering really is. It's not just being a lone wolf all the time. I'll never forget that project, and shout out to all my Hamiltonians from my cohort because I think of those times very fondly.
That sounds like one memorable New Year's Eve. You've explained it so well there, just that camaraderie and the growth, the journey of working together and simulating that career experience. And that's a part of what makes the boot camp so great. So kind of walk through where you were as a General Assembly graduate to your current role at Quantum Metric. You've worked there and moved up and into different roles since your time at General Assembly. Start with how you eventually landed the job at Quantum Metric, and then work through how you got to where you are today.
It's kind of a funny story because I mentioned I was living with my best friend. He had gone through the program. Both of us wanted to move to California. He actually got a job as an instructor at GA in Santa Monica. So we're living in Connecticut. I don't have a job yet. We both know we want to move out there. So we say, okay, let's go. Let's do it. So he's 9 to 5 working at the Santa Monica campus. And I would just go to General Assembly with him and operate as if that was my office every day. There was probably like a 2-month stretch where I was freeloading free coffee and snacks from the GA campus there. Eventually, I got hooked up with another GA alum who was also from the East Coast but living in San Francisco. He was working in a role at Quantum Metric called Customer Success Engineer, which was nothing like any of the other roles that I had applied for around, junior web or software engineer or web developer. And so I remember having a call with him and him being like, I know what it is that because I know it too. And what if I were to tell you that there is a job out there like what I'm doing now where you could take a blend of the things that you've done before in the world of business and finance and apply it and break down concepts to people that maybe don't understand the degree of the technology world that you know about. And I'm sitting there thinking like, this sounds too good to be true. So at that point, I had applied to over 200 jobs. I had gotten really far in a bunch of interviews, but no luck. And lo and behold, my one and only offer came from this company. And it just so happened to be far and away higher paying than any other role that I had been interviewing for. I start as a customer success engineer at Quantum Metric. This was pre-Series A. We're a company of about 25 or 30 people at the time. I'm one of 5 customer success engineers, and we're doing about $5 million of, ARR across the company, so annually recurring revenue. A couple months pass, we get a Series A of 25 million. We quickly started to grow. I just so happened to be at the right place at the right time. Quantum is a company of nearly 500 employees now. We do well over 100 million of ARR. I forget what it is exactly. Don't quote me here. But it's grown so much. And that arc of my journey throughout Quantum is interesting because start out as sort of entry level, gain more responsibility, eventually move into a pre-sales role, which is what solutions engineering is. It's effectively just a customer facing engineering role that's also sales, which is great for me coming from a sales world as a trader. But more than anything, I remember that person that hired me say something in my first couple of weeks, and it really applies today, which is that there isn't a day that goes by at Quantum Metric where I don't wield knowledge or flex some of the muscles that I had to build at GA. That foundation of technical competency was all formulated at General Assembly. You fast forward to now I manage a whole team of engineers. Now I'm in charge of the hiring. It's not lost on me. There are many, many bootcamp grads out there that just need someone to take a shot on them. And so, yeah, there's definitely a lot of ways to pay back what came to me for sure.
You're now a manager of solutions engineering. What's your current, day to day? Like, what are you working on day to day now?
As a manager, I'm a little bit less fingers on keyboard than I used to be. It's not to say I don't jump in every now and again and do demos and do configurations and things like that. What Quantum Metric is, it's a digital experience analytics software. What does that mean? It offers things like, a quantification of what's going wrong potentially on your website or application. Why are those things going wrong? Is it errors? Is it APIs that are failing? Is it poor design? What we do is we quantify those things across how often things are happening and what it's costing you should you choose to leave those things alone. So very relevant for some of the largest organizations in the world that are looking to improve their checkout experience or a product details page or a homepage layout. This spans across websites and applications. And so my team of solutions engineers partners directly with the sales team, so account executives. What we're trying to do is mold our solution to solve business problems of large organizations. So think about major airlines or telecom companies or your favorite running shoe website or retail companies. But overall, it's just like this really fun intersection of technology, sales, and also just working with some of the biggest, most important brands in the entire world. Like, I couldn't think of something more exciting to do on a professional level, just because you do get to kind of operate in so many different playing fields. And it's not just always talking to engineers. I talk to marketers, I talk to UX designers, I talk to product people. I sat down with the CTO of a Fortune 500 travel company the other day. So just finding yourself in rooms that maybe didn't imagine when I was sitting as a student in GA.
You mentioned AI. How has AI impacted your work? You've seen that change just with your timeline of when you decided to join General Assembly. Getting this role at Quantum Metric, growing as the company has grown, and then you have seen all these macro changes. So I'm curious.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much happening in this, and you can't turn on the news or look at even like your social media feeds without seeing something related to AI. And like most companies, we've integrated a lot of AI solutions into our product, not just because the market demands it right now, but because it's such a fundamental shift in the way that people are doing analysis and asking questions of data. And so really the way I've seen it is we were quite innovative in some of the early solutions that we brought to the market, around summarizing, say, like a user session when they struggled and what errors did they run into, not having to go through that entire analysis of a session, but being able to summarize that quickly, and not just one session, but I want to see all of that particular user sessions. If they were on a native app and struggled and then eventually went to a website and made a successful purchase, how does that inform, say, mobile app design or other decision making? So it's really about augmenting a company's workflow. So things like speeding up time to identification and resolution of issues. That tends to be a big metric that a lot of engineering teams are focused on. But on top of that, I think overall, the market is so ready for this right now, in terms of like people are using ChatGPT as a proxy for Google search now. And so it extends into people's working lives and their workflows. They expect to be able to ask questions in natural language. They expect to have kind of information brought to them and not have to do as much manual digging. And it's been astonishing to see just how quickly the broader market has begun to adopt large language models and generative AI, even though this wasn't something that I covered necessarily in my General Assembly program. But what General Assembly really does is it helps you relearn how to learn. You develop this fluency in technology speak, and then you're out there in the market. You're going to conferences, you're talking to leaders, you're hearing about what people really care about. That prompts you as a lifelong learner, having gone through GA, to take it upon yourself to subscribe to newsletters, to go take a course on generative AI fundamentals, or how to use Google AI Studio, any of these kind of things to help um, improve that fluency and to build upon it. Because a lot of the time, as the solutions engineer, you are expected to be not just a generalist, but one of the smartest people in the room. And so you kind of have to be what I'll call like a Renaissance person, right? And have knowledge like a little bit deeper than surface level knowledge of a lot of different topics.
Got it. Got it. You talked previously about your experience of going through the hiring process is trying to find your own career, but now you've been on the side of hiring. Have you hired bootcamp grads since 2017? What do you wish you would have known as a recent bootcamp grad, now that you are on the other side?
Yeah, it's there are several boot campers on my team. I think actually a gentleman that works for me went to GA. I didn't hire him directly. Him and I were peers until I took over the team last year. But yeah, I mean, I think there's a couple boot campers, whether GA or not, just simply on my small team of six SEs. And then at the company at large, there's got to be, I would say, probably close to 10 GA alumni. For the role that I'm hiring right now, definitely need a little bit more of the experience as being an SE. So I wouldn't necessarily hire a boot camp grad right out of boot camp unless they have some selling experience, maybe. But for certain roles within quantum metric, a boot camp's fundamental knowledge coming out of a program like General Assembly is a great fit. Some people ask me, what do you wish you had known back when you were like searching for a job? I wish I had known that you don't have to have the rigidity. Going right for software engineering roles, like support engineering, customer success engineering roles, there are plenty of opportunities out there. They pay quite well. They get your foot in the door of potentially transformative companies like Quantum Metric has for me. Maybe you don't get as lucky as I did, but it's one of those things where you come out with such a great foundation that makes you valuable within an organization. And so if you can get your foot in the door and sort of climb through the ranks and show what you're made of, I think bootcamp grads make for excellent, excellent hires. We've had a lot of success at Quantum with them.
Awesome. That's great to hear. You've talked about core competency, technical mastery, soft skills, organizational skills. Are there specific examples of how GA grads can demonstrate these core competencies as they advance in their job search?
When you leave the program, you have about 85 to 90% of the baseline technical mastery, right? To get you in the door and doing some type of like entry level, whether it's customer facing or not, engineering type of role. The extra 10% that you need to demonstrate is after you finish the course, what have you been doing on your own to up level yourself? Have you been learning a new technology? Have you been integrating something related to AI into a project you're building? Or maybe it's Python that you didn't have enough time to spend in your cohort on. So you're taking it upon yourself to build a project that integrates a lot of Python, where you're showing, hey, I'm not just relying on this program that I went through. I have some internal drive to improve myself. That's the technical stuff. The soft skills, like what is your personal narrative? What is your story? Like, where are you coming from? And why should a recruiter even care to talk to you? Rehearsing those kind of things will help you interview well. And that's part of it, right? You have to interview well in order to get the job. But then on top of that, just being yourself and being somewhat likable. I know that can sometimes be hard to get across in, say, like a Zoom interview or an in person interview. But more than anything, if you can talk about your code in a very conversational way, it starts to connect your soft skills to your technical skills. That's an important part of what you learn in GA is talking about code. I say this all the time. As an engineer, talking about code is kind of a sweet spot of something you need to master. Breaking down really technical things to either other technical people or non-technical people. Because your recruiter that you're talking to is probably not a software engineer, but they probably work with a lot of software engineers. Something I really look for, because it's something I learned in GA, is like strong project management and organizational skills. Whatever job you land, with any luck, you won't be working on one thing. You will have many things. Just like when you're building a website or an application, there will be many little micro tasks that comprise a giant task. So you need to have systems for keeping yourself organized, and you need to be able to demonstrate that. One of the ways that I've taken that away from GA is the Kanban board, right? I use Trello in my personal life. I use Trello in my professional life. And I always have a backlog of things that I need to get done today or tomorrow, things that are in progress, and then things that I've just thrown away and decided it clearly isn't important. And so talking through how you prioritize your work, keep yourself organized in the wake of, let's say, a busy period, that will tell a great story about your overall competency as a worker. Those are really, really important, core competencies for me to see inside of a broader interviewing flow or cycle.
Incredible. Thank you for that. We have just a couple minutes left, so just a final couple questions for you. Was General Assembly worth it for you? The time, financial investment, this decision, this leap to quit your career, jump into GA, was it worth it for you?
I think by now we all know it paid a lot of dividends for me, and the ROI has been tremendous, not just from, a career change perspective, but honestly, like life in general, right? It really taught me so many important lessons and skills around making bets on yourself and having confidence in yourself. And so GA proved to me, at least, as like it was a real inflection point in my life of going after something that I really wanted, leaving something else that I thought I wanted behind, sacrificing personal time, comfortable financial situation too, to make that leap of faith. So yeah, it's afforded me with an amazing career, unbelievable network in my business world. And on top of that, like, I'll just throw in there, like, I don't think I would have met my wife had I not gone to General Assembly, because I met her on a plane on a business trip within my first year at Quantum Metrics. So like there's all these dominoes that you could point back to, like this decision paying off quite a bit for me.
Wow. The threads of life there and the decisions we make. So love that. Final question for you. You talked about inflection points. So like for someone sitting in a job or debating their next move to try to, get into that, fulfilling career, maybe experiencing similar anxiety that you felt before October 2017, what's your advice for them deciding or thinking about taking that leap?
Yeah, it's a great question because I mentioned before, like the fear, you can't pretend that the fear isn't there. You have to like wrestle with it and make sense of it. Everyone will tell you this. This is nothing new. There's never a perfect time to quit. However, you can make it easier on yourself if you make a plan. You make it known to your closest friends and confidants, right? Have them workshop this with you. Is this really something? Like you can go do things on YouTube, or for those of you that have gone through General Assembly, go do their Dash app, which is building a simple web page with HTML and CSS. Test yourself, workshop ideas so that when you eventually decide, hey, I'm going to take this leap of faith, you'll feel like you have a little safety net. If you've gone through the motions of preparing yourself for what that might look like, and if really at the end of the day, you can visualize yourself on the other side of this decision, the fear is a little unwarranted. And so hopefully you have as many fond memories as I do of your entire boot camp experience when you get through it. But put yourself in a position to be successful by making a plan.
I think that's a wonderful place to wrap this up. Thank you so much, Tim, for your insights, sharing your story, your experience, your advice. To find out more and read General Assembly school reviews, you can do that on Course Report.